important milestone, not only for the country, by the way, but for the Human Rights Commission as well, and human rights in the country, because it was in 1995, it's 20 years ago, of the Human Rights Commission. It was in 1995 when the former President Nelson Mandela basically launched or established this institution to ensure that it can start with its work to protect, promote the rights of South Africans. So I think it's a very important day that we really need to be proud of, to cherish, but also to reflect as a nation as to how far we are in terms of human rights.
The Human Rights Commission is rightly placed, so to speak, in actually explaining this. We have seen the commemorations of the Human Rights Day as some sort of an all-black affair, and you hardly ever see other nations taking place. This is a common phenomenon. What is the problem? How do you define this problem? How do we change it going forward?
Look, I think there's a need to join hands and ensure that when we celebrate these historical days, we do so together as a nation. We shouldn't see some of these days as only days for black people, but it's for the country, and it's these days that are actually helping out in terms of integrating the nation. These days were created as part of that project after 1994 to ensure that we rectify the past and we move forward as a nation together, both black and whites, and buy into the whole project of reconciliation. And I think because this March 21st was there, we was being celebrated in the country during apartheid, but it wasn't as significant as it is now. And I think it was a good decision by the first government, the democratic government, to basically declare this day as the day that we really need to reconcile as the nation, to really look back at some of the human rights violations that were happening, some of the injustices that were happening during apartheid, and say this is where we really need to move on as a nation, both blacks and whites.
Let us talk about racism as a social ill. Every time the word racism is mentioned, it is your majority of black people who see themselves as the victims of this word, and somehow as this ill being perpetrated by white people, white society towards black people. But you find the same situation where it is the same black people who will be ill-treating their own fellow black people, if you look at the incidents of xenophobia as they have been unfolding in different parts of the country. Why is that phenomena taking that fashion?
Look, that's a very good question. I mean, I think it's based on the fact that South Africa is coming from state-sponsored racism, if I may put it that way, where it was the white apartheid government oppressing blacks in a way. And I think it is edged in people's psyche that all white people are racists.
Which is not the case.
Which is not the case. Actually, some of the cases that we have dealt with as the Human Rights Commission, I can give you an example of the racism case that we dealt with in the Free State, the Velgerhof case, where the white teacher was basically calling the black children the K-word, and also hoisting the apartheid flag in class, asking black children, showing them the mirror and say, what do you see? And when they say, I see Isaac, say, no, actually you see a baboon. That case was actually brought to us by a white farmer whose children are actually colleagues and friends with some of these black learners. And these children went back home and said, Daddy, we don't understand why are we treated differently from our black counterparts, and we actually don't like the way the teacher is treating our black counterparts. And that parent, white parent, a farmer, took that matter up with the Human Rights Commission, and in fact, the black children reported this matter to the parents, but the parents actually, instead of standing up and say, this is wrong, let's go back to school and report this, or let's approach institutions like Human Rights Commission to deal with this, they didn't. But a white farmer was the one who actually brought this matter to us, so which shows you that there are white people out there who are actually not happy about racism, who want to see this country moving forward. as one, both blacks and whites, and I think it would be wrong to basically say all white people are racist and they don't buy into this.
If I were to come in there then, if we are to mirror our experiences from where we come from, if you look at the U.S. civil movement to where they are today, you realize that the U.S. citizens are so conscientized about their basic human rights. Where are South Africans? Where are we as a society collectively?
Look, I think there's a great deal that was done by government to ensure that people understand their rights and to ensure that most of these rights have been put into this beautiful document called the Constitution of the country, which basically the chapter 2 of it is talking about the Bill of Rights, telling us exactly what we need to do as the country, as people. I think a lot of that has been done. Remember, before 1994, most people didn't even have the right to vote. Today you do have that right to choose your own government, the right to vote. Most women didn't have rights. So this document is basically saying women do have rights, children do have rights. They're not supposed to be corporally punished in school and even at home. Disabled people should have rights. They should have ramps to allow them access to buildings, to allow them employment in government and private institutions. So I believe that a lot of it has been done, but there's still a lot that needs to be done, and especially in terms of popularizing these rights, teaching people about their rights in the rural areas where, because most of the things are happening in Johannesburg, in Pretoria, in Cape Town, in Durban, not really in rural areas where most of these people whose rights have been violated are from. It's in those areas where you don't find your water and sanitation, where you don't find electricity.
Which brings us to talk about what we mentioned earlier, to begin to say what is the right of people to destroy property if they are fighting for basic services. And the argument has been people are desperate. What is the position of the Human Rights Commission? Does any level of desperation give people a right to destroy property, or should people be pushed to desperation?
You know, a worrying trend is emerging where in exercising their rights to protest, people start to destroy the very same services that tomorrow they'll be crying about. I mean, we saw in Malamlela, we saw in Machaganing, we saw across the country. When people start protesting, you get a feeling that there is that deep-seated anger coming out. People burning schools, burning libraries, and all of that. But we respect people's right to protest. But we're saying with the right there comes responsibility. If you've got a right to protest, you really need to do this responsibly. You don't have to infringe on other people's rights to go to school, children to go to school, or ambulances to provide healthcare to the sick gogos in Malamlela. You really need to do that, because if you don't do that, people won't take you seriously. We start to focus on you burning schools, and then we lose.
It defies logic.
Yes, it defies logic, because we actually now starting to think you're not serious if you start to ban the same services that you tomorrow come back and protest and say, I need clinics, I need water, I need this, I need that. So I think there's a lesson there to be learned. But to also add to your question, I mean, about people knowing their rights, I think most people don't actually know the very same rights and the responsibilities that I'm talking about. And I think it's also because of what government should really do, ensure that we print this kind of documents, to ensure that the Constitution is available for everyone in our libraries, in schools. If we can be able to distribute this to school, at the primary school, most people will be able, in the languages of those people, if
that would be best suitable for them to understand.
So that they can be able to understand this, because there was a study that was conducted last year by the Commission alongside other NGOs, where we basically try to check if people do know about the Constitution and how many of them have actually read the Constitution, and the results were really bad. I mean, people have never touched the Constitution. They've never seen it, and most of them who have seen it, they've never actually they didn't even read it. So you can see that there's that need for us to basically go back and say, let's teach people about their rights. Let's also teach them about their responsibilities.
Let's. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Let's look forward to the commemorations tomorrow. It's March 21st. It's a pleasure having you once again for this informative and educative debate. Our pleasure, sir.
Thanks for having me.